Karl Marx was born on May 5, 1818, in the city of Trier, in what is now Germany. His family was middle class, and his father, Heinrich Marx, was a lawyer. His mother, Henriette, was a caring and kind woman. Karl was the third of 9 children. From a young age, Karl was curious and loved to read books. He often asked many questions about the world around him. Karl's father wanted him to get a good education, so he sent Karl to a local school in Trier. Karl was a bright student who enjoyed studying history, literature, and philosophy. He was interested in big ideas and wanted to understand how the world worked. His teachers noticed his intelligence and said he had great potential. When Karl was 17 years old, he went to the University of Bonn to study law. However, Karl was not very interested in law. He preferred to spend his time reading books, writing poetry, and discussing ideas with his friends. He also got into some trouble because he liked to go to parties and have fun. His father, worried about Karl's future, decided to send him to the University of Berlin, a more serious and disciplined school. At the University of Berlin, Karl started studying philosophy. He was especially influenced by the ideas of a famous philosopher named Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. Hegel's ideas were complex, but Karl found them fascinating. Karl began thinking about society, politics, and economics. He wanted to understand why some people were rich while others were poor. During this time, Karl joined a group of young thinkers called the Young Hegelians. They questioned traditional beliefs and wanted to change society. Karl started writing essays and articles about his ideas. He believed that the world needed to be fairer and that everyone should have equal opportunities. In 1843, Karl married his childhood friend, Jenny von Westphalen. Jenny came from a wealthy and aristocratic family, but she supported Karl's ideas. They were deeply in love and shared a strong bond. Jenny became Karl's partner in life and work, often helping him with his writings and supporting him during difficult times. After getting married, Karl and Jenny moved to Paris, France. In Paris, Karl met Friedrich Engels, a man who would become his lifelong friend and collaborator. Engels shared Karl's ideas about society and supported him financially when times were tough. Together, they started working on theories about how society and the economy worked. Karl and Engels believed that the world was divided into 2 main groups: the rich, who owned businesses and land, called the bourgeoisie, and the workers, who had to sell their labor to survive, called the proletariat. They argued that the rich exploited the workers, and that this system was unfair. They wanted to create a society where everyone was equal and no one was exploited. In 1848, Karl and Engels wrote a book called The Communist Manifesto. This book explained their ideas about class struggle and how workers could unite to change the world. The manifesto became one of the most famous political documents in history. It called for workers to rise up and take control of the economy and government. Karl's ideas were controversial, and many governments did not like them. Karl and his family were forced to move from country to country because of his political activities. They lived in Belgium, Germany, and finally settled in London, England, in 1849. Life in London was very hard for Karl and his family. They lived in poverty, often struggling to afford food and rent. Despite these difficulties, Karl continued to work tirelessly. He spent many hours in the British Museum library, reading books and writing. He wanted to understand the history of economics and how societies changed over time. Karl believed that understanding history was the key to creating a better future. In 1867, Karl published the first volume of his most important work, Das Kapital. This book analyzed how capitalism worked and how it affected workers. It was a very detailed and complex book, but it became a cornerstone of economic and political theory. Karl planned to write more volumes of Das Kapital, but he struggled with poor health and financial problems. Karl and Jenny had 7 children, but only 3 of them survived to adulthood. The family faced many tragedies, but they remained close and supported each other. Jenny was always by Karl's side, helping him with his work and encouraging him to keep going. Karl Marx died on March 14, 1883, in London. He was 64 years old. Only a small group of friends and family attended his funeral. However, his ideas lived on and became very influential in the years after his death. Many political movements around the world were inspired by his writings. Karl believed that the world could be a better place if people worked together for equality and justice. His ideas about class struggle and the rights of workers have shaped the way people think about society and economics. Today, Karl Marx is remembered as one of the most important thinkers in history. His story is a reminder that even in the face of great challenges, one person's ideas can change the world.